Hey, how you guys doing? My name is Conrad O'Henzua. I'm a sociology major here at Michigan State with a minor in African American and African Studies. And for my what I should have said assignment, I had a couple different examples that came to mind as soon as the idea of the assignment came up. So it wasn't really that difficult to draw from one. So I'm going to use them that's kind of sort of close to home. And before I go into that, I just want to give a little background information about myself. I am a first generation Nigerian student. Both of my parents immigrated from Nigeria to the States. So I was raised in that kind of household, very traditional, very old fashioned, uh, you know, those kind of, I guess you could call them conservative points of view, but not from a political standpoint, more from a social standpoint, if that makes any sense. So an example that happened growing up that really stuck out to me was I was in high school, and I have a twin sister. We were both in high school, and we were both going out on a random night, just a random night going out with some friends. And my dad was like, we weren't going out together. We were going out with, our separate friend groups. And my dad was like, that's cool, whatever. But what struck me that really didn't make any sense back then, because I didn't really understand it, was how he told me that I could be home by basically, 12, 1, 2 a.m., basically any time. But she had to be home by 9 p.m. And at the time, I didn't think much of it because, like I said, that's where I was raised. I thought that's how things were supposed to go. But looking back on it, that was definitely one of the earlier examples I've had of sexism, something that I've witnessed. The idea that I can go out and stay out a lot longer than my twin sister, who's a woman, that she couldn't do the same thing, and that was kind of, it was kind of weird to me. But as I said before, I didn't think much of it, and just with the courses I've taken since then, and all the subject matter I've read into, that was definitely an example of gender discrimination, right? Because it's not like she was going out by herself. She was going out with other dudes, like with other guys, and I was going out with some of my guy friends as well. And I get it, he wanted her to be safe or whatever, but who's to say that what happens to her couldn't happen to me as well, So and that was definitely an example of sexism that I witnessed growing up. And it happened quite frequently in other avenues too with my father. He was a very traditional guy, but yeah, he was definitely my first exposure I had to what a misogynistic man actually looks like. And I love my dad to death, but that is definitely one of the negative traits that he has that I inherited for a minute, and I'm still unlearning all of that now. Looking back on it, I wish I would have challenged that idea, right? I wish I would have said something to him about how unfair it was, because she would say it was unfair, and of course he wouldn't hear her out. So looking back on it, I really wish I would have spoken up and said something about it and said like, hey, that's not fair. Like if she has to be home by 9, I have to be home by 9 too, or vice versa. She be able to come home at the time I could come home. So if I could go back in time, I would definitely say something to him, because that was unfair. And I believe if you let injustice happen in front of you, you're just as bad as a person who is perpetuating it, right? And I didn't say anything because, that was my dad. And I didn't really know how to react to that. And I didn't realize how wrong it actually was. As I said before, in high school, I wasn't exposed to this kind of material. So yeah, I didn't really know the severity of the situation, and I guess I didn't really want to, I guess, get in trouble with my father. But as I said before, if I could go back in time, I would definitely challenge that ideology and just basically make him understand that that's not fair, and for him to do that to my sister was very unfair. And yeah, I mean, I have a couple other examples, but that's the one that came to mind first, just because I saw it happen so frequently. But yeah, that is my perspective, my story on something I wish I would have done.